I pulled open the morgue drawer. Empty. But the sound of ragged breathing still filled the room. Night shifts are supposed to be predictable in their unpredictability. Chaos upstairs, silence in the basement. At 2:47 a.m., the ER had finally fallen to a low murmur, monitors beeping like tired crickets, the vending machine humming behind triage. That was when the trauma came in. Male, late 20s, no ID, found pulseless in an alley 3 blocks from the hospital. Paramedics worked him the entire ride. We worked him 10 minutes more. Time of death? 3:09 a.m. I said it out loud, because that's what you do. You give the moment a number so it feels less like a theft. Nurse Marta wrote it on the chart with a careful hand. I helped zip the black bag. The zipper's teeth always sound too loud, like a metal mouth closing on a secret. "There's no family on file," Marta said. "Morgue until morning." "I'll take him down," I told her. It wasn't bravado, it was ritual. You escort to bed, you come back whole. The elevator to the basement is colder than the rest of the hospital. You feel it in your teeth. Down there, the air smells of steel and antiseptic, a clean that can't wash anything away. I rolled him through the double doors of pathology and signed the log, DOE M 0309. The morgue tech on nights Klein was out on a cigarette break, judging by the empty stool and the still warm coffee. Fine, I've slid bodies into drawers before. The room hummed, the low, constant compressor of the refrigeration units. Light pooled on stainless steel, the kind of brightness that makes every shadow too sharp. I pulled the gurney alongside an open slot, checked the tag one more time, and rested my fingertips on the cold handle of the drawer. That was when I heard it. A breath. Not the whispery whisper of ducts, not the sigh of a settling building. Wet air dragged in through a tight throat, held for half a second, then pushed back out in a stutter. The kind of breath you hear when pneumonia roofs over a pair of lungs. A patient's breath. A person's. "Hello?" My voice sounded foolish in all that stainless steel. The breath answered with another, ragged and close. I felt it more than heard it, skin prickling on my forearms, the hair at the base of my skull lifting. I turned toward the sound and tracked it like a hunting dog, following the shape of it through the room. It seemed to come from my left, then my right, then no, it wasn't moving. I was. It was coming from the drawer I was about to open. Adrenaline wiped the fatigue from my hands. I unzipped the body bag halfway. I pressed 2 fingers to a jaw already turning cool. No pulse. Of course there was no pulse. My stethoscope hung around my neck like a dare. I didn't lift it. Instead, I slid the tray out, braced my shoes against the floor, and guided the weight inside.
The breath grew louder, a wet saw cutting through the quiet. I pulled the drawer shut, and the sound stopped. Silence. Absolute. Building noise, I told myself. Compressors, vent baffles. Words are sandbags. You pile them up to hold back a flood. I put my hand back on the handle and pulled. The drawer slid out smooth and easy, bright steel rails whispering. Empty. Cold, white, nothing. A tray like a polished altar. No body bag, no sheet, no stray hair, no condensation, no error in the log. My gurney stood behind me, zipped bag still strapped in place as if I had never moved it. And yet the breath was here, loud enough to dimple the air. I leaned in. The metal smelled faintly sweet, like freezer burn in flowers long gone. The breath came again, closer now, a warm dampness against my face that should have been impossible, pulling in, pushing out, the cadence of a failing chest. My own chest matched it without my permission. Inhale, hold, exhale. A lockstep rhythm, two metronomes snapping into the same beat in a room that shouldn't have had any. I whispered, "Who's there?" The next breath came from inside the empty drawer, and it left a fogged oval on the steel where no mouth was. I stumbled backward, the stool behind me clattering to the floor. The sound was sharp, jarring, and for a second I was grateful, because it was real, something I could explain. But the stainest patch of condensation on the steel tray refused to vanish, slowly dripping as though invisible lips had pressed there and lingered. I closed my eyes and counted. 1, 2, 3. Open them. The stain was still there. My first thought was hypoxia. Too little sleep, too many hours, maybe even a micro-faint that stitched dream and reality together. That's what I told myself. But my pulse wouldn't slow, and when I reached out, my fingertips brushed cold metal still damp with moisture. No, this was not in my head. "Stop," I muttered, though I wasn't sure who I was talking to. Myself, the dead man on the gurney, or the morgue itself. The compressor kicked on again, a low growl vibrating through the drawers. With it came another sound, a wheeze, weaker than before but steady. I turned toward the gurney. The black body bag lay exactly where I had left it, straps tight, zipper halfway closed. Hands trembling, I pulled the zipper all the way down. The man's face stared up, slack and pale, lips blue, eyes still sealed. Dead, completely dead. Yet in the silence between the compressor's growl, I heard it, air slipping through his nostrils, the tiniest rasp, unmistakable. I pressed my stethoscope to his chest, the bell quivering from the shake of my own hands. Nothing. No heartbeat. No lung sounds. The chest didn't even rise. But my ears told me he was breathing. A metallic clang behind me snapped me upright. The drawer I had just closed had slid open halfway, its steel rails groaning. No one else was in the room.
The air changed, thickened. It felt like standing waist-deep in water, pressure building around my chest, my own breaths shortening to match the rhythm I had heard in the drawer. Inhale, hold, exhale. The same cadence. It dragged me into its tempo like a drowning man pulled by undertow. I forced myself to break free, snapped my stethoscope back around my neck, gripped the gurney, and shoved it hard toward the back wall. The wheels squealed against the tile, but the body shifted like dead weight should. Real, physical, contained. I turned back to the drawer, empty, waiting, its steel surface fogged again, as if unseen lungs pressed from within. That was when I noticed the logbook on the counter. The entry I had signed minutes before, DOEM 0309, was gone. The line was blank, and in its place, 3 words etched into the paper in shaky ink I didn't recognize. Check your pulse. My hand hovered over the logbook, the letters glaring up at me as if they had been burned into the page instead of written. Check your pulse. I didn't want to. Every part of me screamed not to, but denial had already collapsed like wet paper the moment I saw the fog on the steel. Slowly, I pressed 2 fingers against the side of my neck. Nothing. I swallowed, pressed harder. Again. Nothing. My heart hammered in my chest. I could feel it beating, thudding against my ribs, but my pulse was absent, as though my body was faking the rhythm of life without proof. No. No, no, no. I tore the stethoscope from my neck and planted it against my chest. There it was, the unmistakable thump of a heartbeat, rapid but real. I was alive. I had to be alive. Yet when I pressed my fingers again, the silence in my veins was undeniable. The breath came back, louder, wheezing. This time it didn't come from the drawer or the body bag. It came from everywhere. The walls, the ceiling, the vents, like the entire morgue was one pair of lungs, struggling, drowning. The lights flickered. For half a second, the gurney beside me was empty. When the lights steadied, the body bag was back, zipped closed, though I hadn't touched it. I stumbled toward the elevator, but the button refused to light under my thumb. I hit it again, harder, until my nail cracked against the steel. The doors stayed shut. Behind me, the drawer screeched as it slid fully open. The sound was deafening in the confined room. Against every instinct, I turned. The tray inside was no longer empty. It held a body. My body. I saw myself laid out, skin waxy, chest unmoving, eyes half-lidded. My white coat was soaked, clinging to my frame as if I'd been pulled from water. A faint mist drifted from the lips of the corpse. Breath. My own dead face exhaled, fogging the steel once more. I staggered forward, desperate to close the drawer, to erase the image. But the corpse's eyes shot open. They locked onto mine, and in my own voice, hoarse and broken, it rasped. Time of death. 3:09. The exact words I had spoken earlier that night. I staggered backward, slamming into the counter, instruments clattering to the floor. The corpse, my corpse, still stared at me from the open drawer, chest unmoving, but lips curling into something between a grin and a grimace. Time of death, 3:09, it repeated, voice distorted, scraping across the room like metal dragged across tile. My mouth went dry. I wanted to shout, to tell it wasn't real, but my throat locked tight. All I managed was a whisper. "You're not me." The thing's eyes narrowed. "Aren't I?" The breath I heard now wasn't only mine. It was synchronized, my chest heaving, the body in the drawer fogging the steel at the same cadence. Inhale, hold, exhale, perfectly in sync. "No," I growled, gripping the edge of the counter to steady myself. "This isn't—" The overhead lights snapped off. The morgue plunged into darkness. Only the soft green glow of the emergency exit sign bled into the room. In that dimness, I heard the shuffling of fabric. When the light surged back, the body bag on the gurney was gone. Straps unbuckled. Empty. A wet footprint marked the floor beside me, then another. Bare, heavy, dragging. They led from the gurney toward me, each step leaving a smear of water across the tile. My breath caught.
My own corpse was gone from the drawer too. The tray sat empty, yet water trickled from it, dripping onto the floor with steady rhythm. The footsteps circled behind me, slow, deliberate. I spun, but nothing was there. The morgue stretched out in sterile silence. Only the compressor groaned, its vibration shaking the floor. Then, at my ear, so close the moisture touched my skin, came the whisper, "You shouldn't be alive." I lashed out, swinging my arm into empty air. The whisper dissolved, echoing into the vents like a sigh. The logbook still lay open on the counter, my last entry gone again. But in its place, new words scrawled themselves across the page, ink etching in real time. "You are the body." My knees weakened. My pulse, or the lack of it, throbbed in my mind like a drumbeat. And from the corner of the room, the morgue's cold drawers rattled, one after another, as if unseen hands inside were trying to force their way out. All of them. The rattling grew into a chorus, a syncopated banging as every drawer shook in unison. The steel handles clanged like bells in some funeral procession. My heart, or whatever passed for it now, pounded inside my chest, though my fingers still found no pulse at my throat. I lashed out. I backed toward the morgue door, every nerve screaming for escape. But as I reached the handle, a crash reverberated behind me. One of the drawers slammed open so violently the tray nearly flew free. The sound was deafening, echoing like a gunshot. I turned. Inside was another body. Not the John Doe we'd wheeled in, not my corpse from before. This one was different, bloated, gray-skinned, water streaming off its hair and arms as though it had just been pulled from a river. Its chest expanded with a long, labored inhale.
The drawer beside it burst open. Another body, identical. Same drowned features, same sodden white coat, same slack mouth dragging in wheeze. Then another, and another. The morgue erupted as drawers screeched open one by one, each revealing the same body, me, in various stages of drowning. Some with faces pale as wax, others waterlogged and bruised, eyes bulging, lips purple. Each corpse dragged in breath that rattled like broken glass in lungs. The sound rose into a suffocating symphony. I clutched my ears, but the noise wasn't only outside, it was in me. My chest moved to their rhythm, syncing with the drowned choir. Inhale, hold, exhale. My body obeyed their cadence as though I were just one more drawer in the morgue. "No!" I roared, slamming my fist into the door handle. It refused to turn. My vision blurred, spots dancing before my eyes. The air felt thick, heavy, like breathing underwater. From the center row, one corpse sat up. Its eyes were my eyes, blank but aware. Water spilled from its mouth as it rasped, "Time of death must be signed, doctor. You forgot." The logbook flipped open on its own, pages fluttering, pen rolling across the counter, words scrawled in jagged script. "Sign here." The corpse slid from its drawer, bare feet smacking wet against the tile. Then another climbed free, and another. Their movements were jerky, but their intent was clear. They were converging. I hammered the door again, nails tearing, throat raw. Finally, with a screech, the lock gave way. I stumbled into the hallway, the heavy door swinging shut behind me. For a breathless moment, the silence of the hospital basement wrapped around me. No rattling, no whispers, no drowned doubles. But then I froze. The sound followed, breathing, not from behind the morgue door, not down the hall, from the walls themselves, as if the entire hospital had become one great lung. The hallway lights buzzed overhead, flickering in a jittering rhythm that matched the phantom breathing in the walls. Each step I took echoed too loudly, as though the floor itself was hollow, lungs beneath the tiles sighing with every footfall. I pressed my back to the wall, forcing myself to breathe slowly, though even that felt stolen, borrowed from something that wanted it back. I needed witnesses, people, something ordinary to shatter the grip of this nightmare. The elevator dinged at the far end of the corridor. Relief surged through me. I sprinted, shoes slapping wet against the linoleum. My reflection in the steel doors caught me off guard, pale, soaked, eyes rimmed with red. For a split second, it didn't move as I did. Instead, it tilted its head, grinning faintly. The doors opened. Marta stood there, holding a tray of supplies. She blinked at me, startled. "Doctor? You look like you've been swimming." My voice cracked. Words died in my throat. She frowned. "Are you all right?" Behind her, the elevator walls gleamed like mirrors. My reflection in them wasn't alone. Over my shoulder, dozens of versions of me pressed up against the glass, waterlogged, gasping, their mouths opening in ragged unison. I stumbled back. "No, don't go down there." Marta followed my gaze, then looked back, confused. "Down where? Doctor, you're scaring me." I shook my head violently. "The morgue! Don't go to the morgue!" The tray trembled in her hands. "Maybe you should sit. You don't look well." The breathing grew louder, this time not in the walls, but in the elevator itself. A wet rasp filling the small space, though Marta didn't react. She couldn't hear it. Only I could. I reached for her arm. "Please, don't let anyone near those drawers. Promise me." Her eyes widened, and she stepped back. "You need help." The elevator doors began to close. For a heartbeat, I saw them again. Those drowned reflections clawing at the glass, faces pressed so hard against it that cracks formed like spider webs. Then the doors shut, cutting me off from Marta's horrified expression. Alone again, the corridor stretched out before me like the hollow throat of something breathing me in. The logbook's words burned in my memory. "You are the body." And as I pressed trembling fingers to my neck once more, I realized the truth hadn't changed. No pulse, nothing. But the breaths in the walls kept coming, steady, patient, waiting. By the time I reached the ER, the normal chaos of night shift should have been a comfort. Phones ringing, monitors beeping, voices overlapping. But tonight, it all sounded wrong. Hollow. Like every sound was echoing inside a chest cavity too large to belong to a single body. Nurse Marta had beaten me back upstairs. I caught glimpses of her whispering with two other nurses, their eyes darting toward me before quickly looking away. I couldn't blame them. My clothes clung damp to my skin, my hair plastered to my forehead as though I'd crawled from a river instead of the basement. I moved through the department, trying to focus on patients. A man with a fractured wrist, a woman short of breath. I asked questions, examined, charted, but every breath they took unnerved me. Each inhale matched the rhythm I heard below, the same cadence. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Then I realized it wasn't. Just patients, the nurses, the doctors, even the janitor sweeping in the corner. Every set of lungs in the ER rose and fell in perfect synchrony with one another, and with mine. I stopped in the middle of the ward, heart hammering. The sound hit me like a tidal wave, dozens of people breathing as one organism, a single monstrous lung filling and emptying, the walls vibrating with it. Marta noticed me frozen. "Doctor!" she called cautiously, like someone approaching a wild animal. "Are you—" Her voice cut off as the overhead lights flickered. For 1 second, every patient in the ER turned their heads toward me, every single one, their eyes glazed, pupils wide, lips parting. And then, in unison, they exhaled. The rush of air roared through the department, a gale that rattled IV poles and scattered papers. My white coat billowed against my frame as if caught in a storm. I staggered back, my ears ringing with the force of it. When the lights steadied, the patients had returned to normal, chatting, groaning, crying out in pain. The nurses resumed their work as though nothing had happened. Only Marta still stared at me, her face drained of color. Did you hear that?" she whispered. "Yes," I said hoarsely. My throat felt raw. Her hand trembled on the counter. "They all breathed like one person." I nodded slowly, dread gnawing my insides. Someone else had finally noticed. It wasn't just me. But as relief threatened to break through, a sound rose above the noise of the ER. A slow, rattling inhale. Familiar. Too familiar. I turned toward Trauma Bay 2. The curtain rippled as if caught in a breeze, though no vent blew near it. Behind the fabric came the unmistakable sound of breathing. Heavy, wet. And I knew before pulling the curtain back that whatever waited inside wasn't a patient. The curtain swayed as though someone inside was shifting restlessly. I reached for it, fingers trembling, and pulled it aside in one sharp motion. The gurney stood empty, sheets crisp and untouched, but the monitor beside it was alive with noise. The heart rhythm traced jagged green spikes across the screen, steady as any living pulse. Oxygen saturation blinked at 98%, respiration rate 16. No patient, no body, just machines measuring someone who wasn't there. Malfunction, I muttered, but my voice cracked. My hand hovered over the monitor cables. They weren't even connected to anything. Yet the beeps came steady, calm, like a phantom heart still beating. Behind me, Marta's voice shook. "Doctor, look." I turned. Every other monitor in the ER had synchronized. Whether attached to a patient or not, they all pulsed at the exact same rhythm as the empty bay. A chorus of beeping that matched the cadence I already knew too well. Inhale, hold, exhale. The lights dimmed. For a heartbeat, the monitor's glow was the only illumination, green waves dancing across the room like a dark ocean. Then a sound split the air, a wet cough. I whipped back to the empty gurney.
The sheet sagged, pressed down by invisible weight. Slowly, an impression deepened, fabric sinking as though a body were forming beneath it. A head, shoulders, arms. And then I saw the face. My face. Water seeped from its mouth, soaking the pillow, dripping in a steady rhythm that matched the monitor's beeps. My drowned double blinked once, eyes cloudy, then locked onto mine. The chorus of beeping escalated, every monitor in the ER shrieking with perfect synchronicity. "Stop!" I begged, though I didn't know who I was speaking to. "Stop this!" The double opened its lips. A rasping voice leaked out, wet and broken. You left me in the drawer."
The curtain whipped shut of its own accord, cutting off the sight. The monitors flatlined in an instant, one long, piercing tone filling the department. When the lights steadied, patients stirred again. Nurses moved as if nothing had happened. No one else reacted to the sound, the curtain, the voice. Only Marta. She stared at me, horrified. "Doctor," she whispered, "what are you?" I had no answer, because for the first time, I realized I wasn't entirely sure myself. Marta's question lodged in my chest like a blade. What are you? Not what's happening, not what did you see. She'd looked straight into my eyes and spoken as if she already doubted I was human. Before I could answer, the flatline tone snapped off. The ER filled again with its familiar cacophony, beeps, cries, clatter of carts. Too normal. The kind of normal that makes you want to scream. I pulled the curtain back again. The gurney was empty, the sheets dry. No trace of me lying there, no water dripping, nothing at all. "Doctor," Marta whispered, still pale, "you need to sit down." But I couldn't, because just then every patient in the ward turned their head again toward Trauma Bay 2. Simultaneously, eyes glazed, breathing in unison. The curtain trembled. This time it wasn't the air. A hand pressed against it from inside, distorting the fabric outward. Long, pale fingers. My fingers. I stepped back, my pulse, or whatever ghost of it remained, racing in my ears. The hand pushed harder, dragging down the curtain until the rod squealed in protest. Then, with a wet, tearing sound, the fabric ripped, collapsing to the floor. And there I was. Soaked, skin gray and waterlogged, eyes clouded but fixed on me. My drowned double stepped out from the bay, bare feet slapping the tile, leaving puddles in its wake. Each drop spread wider than physics allowed, dark water bleeding across the floor like veins. The ER froze. Patients, nurses, doctors, all of them stared without moving, as though caught in a trance. Only Marta whimpered, backing toward the nurses' station. The double smiled. My smile, twisted by something that should never wear it. It kept me in the drawer. Now it's your turn. The monitor shrieked again, all at once. My chest convulsed. I gasped, but no air came. It was breathing for me now. My lungs followed its rhythm, controlled, bound. I staggered, clawing at my throat, while the double advanced, slow, patient, every step splashing louder than the last.
When it raised its hand, every patient in the ER raised theirs too, in perfect synchronization, 100 arms lifting like marionettes pulled by one cruel string. And in 100 voices, all mine, they whispered the same words. Time of death, 3:09. I collapsed to my knees, choking, my throat searing as though water filled it. My chest rose and fell, not by my own will, but by some cruel rhythm dictated by the double. Inhale, hold, exhale. The sound thundered in my skull.
Around me, the ER had transformed into a nightmare tableau. Patients sat upright in their beds, IV lines dangling, faces slack, all eyes locked on me. Nurses froze mid-step, arms still raised like puppets, their lips parting in unison. The drowned double stood at the center of it all. Its skin gleamed wet under the fluorescent lights, drops falling in slow motion to the tiles, each one echoing like a drumbeat. Its cloudy eyes burned into mine, a grotesque mirror. You signed me away, but you never signed yourself. I coughed violently. Water sprayed from my lips, splattering across the floor. Marta shrieked, stumbling back against the counter, knocking over a tray of instruments. The clang of metal was sharp, real, proof I wasn't the only one seeing it now. The double stretched out a hand. As it did, every patient mirrored the motion, reaching toward me, fingers crooked like claws, 100 pale arms extending in perfect synchronicity. My lungs screamed. I dragged myself toward the door, palms slipping in the puddles spreading beneath me. But the water rose faster, seeping from nowhere, pouring across the ER floor until it reached my waist, though no one else seemed submerged. The double waded through the flood effortlessly, its steps rippling outward. With every stride it grew taller, looming, head nearly brushing the ceiling. My own drowned face magnified into something monstrous, mouth yawning open as if ready to swallow me whole. The chorus of voices swelled, mine, all mine, whispering, shouting, shrieking. Time of death, 3:09. I screamed back, hoarse, desperate. I'm alive! For a flicker, the double faltered. The monitors spiked erratically, alarms wailing. Marta seized my arm, trying to haul me upright, her grip trembling but fierce. Then fight it, she shouted, her voice cutting through the cacophony like a blade. The double snarled, water pouring from its mouth. Its hand snapped shut like a fist, and my chest followed. Air crushed from my lungs. My vision darkened. The ceiling spun, ceiling lights blurring into streaks of white. And then I was dragged under again, this time not into sleep, not into a dream, but into the lake itself, cold, endless, merciless. The hospital dissolved above me, swallowed whole by the black water. And waiting in the depths were all the drowned versions of me, circling, reaching, ready. The water swallowed me whole. No surface above, no hospital lights, no Marta's grip, just black, endless weight pressing from all sides. My ears filled with the roar of silence, my chest convulsing against lungs that couldn't decide if they belonged to the living or the dead. Shapes encircled me, my shapes, dozens, maybe hundreds, drifting like carrion in the abyss. Some looked younger, fresh-faced, unscarred. Others were older, their features sagging, swollen, bloated. Each one wore my white coat, stained darker with water. They didn't move with the current, they were the current. One of them swam closer, pale hands grasping my shoulders with icy strength.
Its eyes were mine but empty, and its lips moved with the cadence of the others. "Stay. You never left."
Another seized my arm, another my ankle, until I was tangled in myself, dragged down. My body thrashed, but every movement only tightened their grip. They weren't drowning me. They were absorbing me, pulling me into the rhythm of their breaths. From the center of the swarm rose the largest figure, my drowned double, swollen and monstrous. Its chest heaved like a tide, every inhale sucking me closer, every exhale flooding my veins with cold. "You are already written," it bellowed, voice booming through the water. "Your time of death is 309, over and over, forever." "No!" The word escaped as a stream of bubbles, fragile, desperate. I clawed at the hands gripping me, tearing away my own dead faces. My vision swam with white spots. My chest begged me to surrender. But in the darkness, another voice cut through. A woman's voice, muffled, distorted by water. Marta's. "Fight it!" Her hand pierced the black above me, faint and flickering like light through storm waves. Impossible, yet there. She reached down, fingers splayed, straining toward mine. The drowned doubles shrieked, their voices shredding into rage. Their grip tightened, pulling me lower, away from that single hand of hope. "Stay," they chorused, furious now. "You belong to us." For a moment I almost yielded. The cold was numbing, the pressure crushing. Giving in meant silence, stillness, no more struggle. But then I remembered the sound that had haunted me from the first night, the ragged breath. Mine. Proof that I had resisted. Proof I was still something. With every ounce of strength, I tore my hand free and thrust it upward. My fingertips brushed Marta's. Light ripped through the lake like lightning splitting a night sky. The doubles wailed, their bodies unraveling into streams of black water, dissolving back into the abyss. My double wailed so loudly, its mouth gaping too wide until it burst into a torrent that swept me upward. I shot through the dark, lungs burning, Marta's grip yanking me back to air, to sound, to life. I gasped awake on the ER floor, coughing, water spilling from my mouth in violent streams that soaked the tiles. My body convulsed, lungs dragging in air like it was the first breath I'd ever taken. "Doctor!" Marta knelt beside me, her hands pressing down on my shoulders to keep me still. Her face was pale, drenched with sweat, but her eyes were fierce. "Breathe. Just breathe." I did. The air stung, harsh and metallic, but it was real. Around us, the ER buzzed as though nothing had happened. Patients moaned. Machines beeped. Nurses moved briskly. The chaos of life resumed. Only the puddle beneath me betrayed what had just occurred. I sat up slowly, every muscle trembling. Marta pulled back, staring at me as if weighing whether I was man or apparition. Finally, she whispered, "I saw them. The others. They looked like you." I swallowed hard, throat raw. "I know." Silence stretched. Then the overhead lights flickered. Once. Twice, before steadying. My skin crawled. Marta helped me to my feet. "You're alive," she said, voice shaking. "Whatever that was, you're still here." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to anchor myself in that certainty. But as I glanced toward the trauma bay curtain, I saw it flutter, though no one stood nearby. A faint puddle spread from beneath it, glistening in the fluorescent light. "Doctor!"
Marta's voice pulled me back. I forced myself to nod. I'm fine. The lie tasted like iron. I left the ER that morning, the sun rising over the parking lot. Light should have felt like salvation, but instead it shimmered across car windows, puddles and polished metal, each surface catching my reflection. And in more than one, the reflection didn't match. In one pane of glass, I walked with Marta. In another, I walked alone. And in another, the drowned double stared back, lips moving though I couldn't hear the words. Yet, when I blinked, they all moved in unison again, like nothing had changed. For now. That night, in the silence of my home, I lay awake listening, my heartbeat hammered. My chest rose and fell. But underneath it, faint and patient, I heard another rhythm, a breath.
Coming not from my lungs, but from the walls. The lake hadn't let me go. It never would.